On today's show, I'd like to highlight a special dish. It's called Pylov, and it's the actual national dish from Uzbekistan, which is a Middle Asian country. And this particular recipe was given to me by a dear friend, Eddie Braitman, who passed all too soon around 2005. And he detailed every single ingredient and every process. And I think as I go along in the show, you will see how everything is very methodical, and it makes a big portion that I'm sure you're going to enjoy for a long time. I want to do a little prep for the rice pilaf, and just to show you, this is beautiful Angus beef and it's sirloin tips. What I'm going to do is put the strips on a tray, and I'm going to freeze it, or at least partially freeze it, and it's so much easier to slice it. This is probably 3.5 pounds, and I really need 4 pounds of meat, so I'm going to use chicken too. So here's the steak tips. I'll bring it over to the freezer, and I'm going to lay it in and then cover it so that it doesn't get any frost on it. And I'll check back in a few hours to see if it's ready to be cut. I decided to take the meat out after an hour and a half, and I think it's good consistency. It should be good. And then I'm also taking out the chicken that's already been pre-cooked. I always have packages in the freezer, so that should make up the other amount, and I'll have enough for 4 pounds of meat. So let's see how this goes. It's semi-soft, which is good. And I'll try this knife first. Good cut, really good cut. And I can also take off a little piece of fat as I go along. And I think I'll make it easier by doing this, so you'll see it a lot better. And there's a chunk of fat that can come right off. And I'm making 1-inch pieces. This recipe calls for either lamb, beef, or chicken, or you can do a blend like I'm doing with the chicken and the beef. Just make sure that they're not too large. These pieces are good. That. I'm on the last piece. Now we're down to the wire. I feel like I'm using a butter knife. It just is so easy to cut. From all this meat right here, we really had very little fat. Now I would just like to go over here, and I have pre-cooked chicken. I always have that in my freezer for soups or for other meals. And I just take and I will defrost this so I can add it in to the rice pilaf later. I have 2 pounds of carrots here, and I'm going to start cleaning them off. And in order to immerse them in the rice pilaf, I actually have to cut them like they're French fries. So the first thing is to get them clean. And that's just what I'm doing now. And make sure to get nice big carrots. It's a lot easier to cut them. Just make a little indentation, and then with the chef's knife, go right down, and you'll find you'll get a nice clean cut. Now fold them over so that you can keep cutting small strips. So you go like so, again, making thin strips with a serrated edged knife. And once you feel you've got the proper indentation, boom. And this is more like what you'll need when you put all of it into the pot. And takes a little while, but it's well worth it. And just be careful, like so. And it'll make a big pot of carrots. A pound of onions is another ingredient, and they need to be cut like onion rings. I do it about 1/4 of an inch. I'm using 2 pounds of short grain sushi rice. And an important step is to make sure that the water is clear. So I'm taking a pitcher just to show you. You can do it under the faucet too, but just rinse. Usually it takes a couple of rinses. Now you'll notice that the water is a little murky. Okay, so it needs more, and I don't want to do too much water in this bowl or else it's going to spill over. So I'll take and dump this water and do it again. And if you think that the rice needs to be rinsed another time, so do it a 3rd time. It's still a little bit cloudy. Pretty good. Here's where the fun begins. We're putting everything together, and I'm starting out with oil. I use sunflower oil. You can use whatever you choose to do in the house, but if you have a bottle like this, 32 ounces, you want to take half. So just add 16 ounces. I want to make sure I don't go over the mark. I'm doing, just like I said, a half a bottle, heating it up. That should be about right. And the first ingredient to go into the pot, the onions. I'm separating the onions too, because they have to be fried to a golden color. And once this is fried, I'll be adding the meat, and that too needs to be browned. The onions are starting to turn a golden brown, and you see that they have some fried singeing on some of the onions. So I'm going to start adding the meat, and the meat has to brown. So now we have the sirloin tips and the chicken, and I'll occasionally stir it and be back soon when the meat is all brown. And now I'm going to be adding the carrots, and these are going to cook for 10 minutes. So I'll just mix them in and cover the pot, and we'll check back in a little while. During this 10-minute time period, the recommendation is to stir it frequently. So I'm just showing you that it's important to turn everything over a couple of times during that time frame. Now you can see that everything is bubbling, and I've been stirring it a couple more times during the 10-minute time frame. And now I'll add a little bit of salt, and a quart of water. Now this is going to be simmering for 25 minutes. And now I'm taking the rice and I'm placing it on top, all around. And let the water absorb into the rice. I'll be pressing it around and making it flat. And then when I don't see a lot of water, I'm going to cover the pot and let this simmer for another 40 minutes. But I'll leave it open right now and let some of the water just boil down a bit. This is the very last step. The water has disappeared off the surface of the pot, and all that you really see is the rice. So take a look and you'll see that just the rice shows just a little bit of water on the edge. And now I'm going to put it down to a simmer, cover it, and let it cook for another 40 minutes. 40 minutes have come and gone, and we have here, see how the rice is all over the top, no water, and you see how the carrots have broken up because they're nice and soft. This makes such a fantastic pot of pilaf, and it can feed a whole family and more. Here's a small dinner portion, and I really hope you try this meal. Your family will love it, especially with the winter months upon us. So enjoy. It's a wonderful dish.